Hello everyone, it's Rachel. Welcome back to Book and Bloom. Today I wanted to share some of my favorite apps that I use to help me keep track of reading and write reviews and see what other people think of different books. I'm gonna start with the app that most people in the book community already know about, but in case you haven't used it before or one of the few who haven't heard of this app, definitely an app I use on a regular basis is Goodreads. Goodreads is just a great app to see what other people think of books. It's a great way to keep track of your reading, to organize your different book categories, to leave your own reviews. I highly recommend making an account on Goodreads because there's always different giveaways going on. One really fun aspect of Goodreads is they have yearly challenges. At the beginning of the year, you can decide how many books you want to read for the year. You can keep track of it through the app, keep track of the progress, the percentage you are in the book, or the page number that you're on, and make little updates. It's just a fun way to kind of interact with the book community. You know, make your little updates on your books and make little like reactions to certain chapters or things going on in your reading. And it's just really cool to see what other people think of books, what their favorite books are. Of the apps that I use, this one's definitely very high up there on my usage. There's just a lot of really great features. Anytime that I go out, go to the library, go to a bookstore, and I see a book that interests me, I usually go on Goodreads to see what the rating is, people's reviews. I look to see a little description of the book. It's just nice having it all in like one place and to be able to actually see what other people, like what real people think. It's nice because sometimes you can find reviews from people that seem to have a similar taste to you, and you can follow them on Goodreads and end up getting a whole lot more book recommendations and insight into books that, you know, you might be intrigued by. And I think it's just helpful to know like what other people think. So sometimes if I had high expectations for a book because I got lots of good reviews and then I read it and I'm not sure why I don't like it, or I just didn't end up liking it as much as I hoped, sometimes I like to go back and look at reviews of people who didn't like it as much as everybody else, just to see what people have to say. And it usually helps me to understand why I didn't like something in a book, or sometimes I'm able to kind of understand more about what I like in books or what I don't like in books, because, you know, some people are just really good with the way that they write their reviews. They're very passionate about it. Some people have a lot of fun with it, and, you know, they have all these different like images and GIFs, and if you don't have Goodreads already, definitely get Goodreads. It's just a really fun way to interact with the community and get tons of book recommendations. I mean, if you somehow don't have a Goodreads profile, you definitely need to change that. Okay, so we've got the obvious out of the way. On the flip side, a more underrated app / website that I haven't heard as many people talk about, which I think is really cool, really interesting, is StoryGraph. It's kind of similar to Goodreads in the way that it helps track your reading and your books and things like that, but the cool thing about it, you could take all your information from Goodreads and download it and then upload it onto your StoryGraph account. And what I love about it, because I am definitely a nerd when it comes to like graphs and statistics and just I love all that stuff, it shows you your different reading habits sort of, or like the percentage of like books that were thrillers that you read last year, you know, how many pages you read each month. So this is just another reading tracking app, but it's gonna give you a lot more information. I would say that Goodreads is more of a social app primarily, and there is a little bit of reading tracking. StoryGraph is going to give you a lot more information. So if you love graphs and statistics, definitely check out StoryGraph. It's really fun to use StoryGraph in tandem with Goodreads because it's going to give you all that extra information that I usually kind of miss from Goodreads. Sometimes I'm like, at the end of the year, I think it'd be cool to see some graphs, some little, you see a little bit of statistics with your yearly wrap up. Most popular book you read, the least popular book you read, your average rating for the year, different things like that. StoryGraph is one of those apps that I use every once in a blue moon. It's not one that I necessarily use on a regular basis, and that one I would say is not as much of a community focus. I feel like I'm sure there is a community on StoryGraph, but it's not quite as social as Goodreads, just because Goodreads is so popular, so a lot of people use it. And StoryGraph is more underrated. The description of the app says that it is to track your reading and choose books based on your mood and favorite topics. So that's another thing, subjective perspective on Goodreads, while StoryGraph will give you kind of different information like the mood of the book, the feel of the book. So we have Goodreads, which is just a very simple way to track your reading, pretty simple way to track your reading. StoryGraph is going to give you a little more information about like the mood and like genres, and give you more graphs and pie charts and fun things like that. Well, another app that I have, which is very small, from what I know, it seems like a very small app. It seems very simple. I use this app through my library. I would imagine that anyone could just use this app, but it might be only through like a library system. So I apologize if this is not an app just anyone can use. Maybe if you like the idea of this app, maybe you can find an app that's very similar to this. So it's called Beanstack. What I like about Beanstack is that this app has a bigger focus on tracking your like daily reading. It's going to encourage you. It has things like streaks, start a timer, input that you're reading a certain book. When you're done reading, you stop the timer, put in your information, and it just helps you to see like how fast you read, how often you read. It's just a cool way to track like your daily reading habits. And so I use this through my library, and so oftentimes they have different reading challenges where they're trying to encourage people to read a certain amount in a time frame. And so things like that can just be fun because it really encourages you to read on a regular basis. And I just think the whole like timer aspect. Obviously, you don't need a specific app to practice this idea. You could just use your phone's like stopwatch feature, and then you could just have like a little note on your phone where you like keep track of things like that. But I just think it's fun that there's a whole app just for this. There's like a sense of community, and it's more local. So because you use your library card, you use your local like library to use this app, you can kind of see what people around where you live, what they say about certain books. Other apps, of course, are very big, so you get to see kind of the more global side. Beanstack is cool because it's more local. It's a lot smaller of an app. It's a lot more simplistic to know how fast you read, what your reading speed is, and I think that can help if you have certain reading goals to have a more realistic approach to how long it's going to take for you to finish, how much you read on a regular basis, and just being aware of things like that. So it's just a fun way to have that extra information. Like I said earlier, the timer aspect of it. Every once in a while, when I'm reading, I get very distracted. I think of something and I think, oh, I'm gonna look something up. A thought pops in your head and you get distracted. And I like that the timer reminds me, oh, I'm reading right now. I need to either pause, take a moment, sure, allow myself to get distracted, or I need to be like, okay, no, I'm reading right now. I'm gonna go back to reading. It kind of helps you to stay productive and stay focused. With StoryGraph, you're gonna get charts about like the length of books and the moods and the genres and different graphs related to that. Beanstack is more zooming in the amount of pages you read and how much time you spend reading, and StoryGraph is more of a zoom out. They all work very well together, and they all give you kind of a different fun function. So next up, I have two different apps that are kind of similar. So like I said with Beanstack, Beanstack is an app that you can use with your library. With these other two apps, you have to have a library card to use these apps because it is like an app that works with your library system. If you don't have a library card, you definitely need to change that. A whole video in itself just to rant about. Hoopla and Libby, these are apps that you can get ebooks and audiobooks. Hoopla also has tons of other media too. It also has like music and movies and comics, all sorts of electronic media that you can borrow from your library. Go ahead and talk about Libby a little bit first. So Libby's really cool because Libby is going to give you newer books. There's lots of books that you wouldn't be able to get on Hoopla that you would be able to get on Libby. Through the Libby app, if I just want to read a book on my phone, if I want to read a book on a tablet, Libby's cool because you can get it for your Kindle. So they both have their pros and cons. My biggest thing that I've noticed about Libby, which I think is really silly, is that you have to wait. If the book is not already ready, you usually have to wait. They almost treat it like there's just one ebook. You borrow that ebook, only you have access to that ebook, and then when you're done, like, then somebody else can use it. It's like they almost treat the ebooks like they're physical books, and like they only have like one of that ebook, which I just think is really weird. And Hoopla is not that way at all, because you can just borrow a book instantly and you have it. You don't have to wait. There's no sense of like, oh, if 10 people wanted to borrow the same ebook at the same time, they would all have access to it. While with Libby app, only one person would have access to it and the other 9 would have to wait their turn. That's the biggest thing, the biggest drawback of these two. The one that I use a lot is Hoopla, because you can get books instantly. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait in line. If everyone wants to read the super popular book, you don't have to wait. With Hoopla, you get it instantly and you get it for 21 days, and the only limitation, you can borrow 15 titles a month. That includes movies, that includes books, ebooks, audiobooks, comics, music. There's more variety on Hoopla. The big drawback is that they don't have a lot of newer books. If there is a newer book, it's usually a smaller author, more of an indie author, or, you know, a less well-known author. Hoopla is great for older books, classics, lesser known books. A series that became very popular recently because Book Talk is the whole like Shatter Me series. And you can read the entire series on Hoopla. You can listen to the audiobooks, you can get the ebooks, you can rent them all right away. You don't have to wait. So anything that's a little bit older, high chance you'll be able to get it on Hoopla. But anything that's newer, that's more popular, is more likely to be only on Libby. They both have their pros and their cons. I use Hoopla a lot for audiobooks. Sometimes I also get ebooks on there and then I read them on my iPad, sometimes on my phone. That's a good habit to start doing. A little side note about Hoopla. So Libby you can get on a Kindle, but Hoopla you can't. So that is a con. You know, they both have their pros and their cons. So I would say get both apps. Definitely check out Hoopla if you want to read anything newer and you're willing to wait a little bit for it. Then also check out Libby. The last app I wanted to talk about is called Likewise. You've probably seen their advertisements before, but this is just an app that is just supposed to give you recommendations based on something that you liked. Say you liked The Hunger Games, it might give you a recommendation for like the Scythe series. You put in some information, you let them know things you like, and then they give you recommendations for things that are like the things that you like. If you know what you like, you know the type of tropes and the type of genres that you enjoy. People are different with what draws them to a book. So some people, different story elements that might intrigue them about a book. and other people it's the hype around it, it's other people's opinions, the reaction from people that gets them to read a book. So everyone's different in what draws them to pick up a book. If you kind of know your taste and know what you like, this might be a really good app for you. Those are my favorite book related apps. Definitely let me know of any apps that you guys enjoy. Let me know if you're gonna try out any of these apps. Let me know if you are gonna get a library card now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Read a book and bloom on. Bye!